Jai Hind, Jai Bharat, and welcome to Dev Talks. This is Aadi. Once again, we are here on Thursday night with Major General Prabdeep Singh to talking about Ukraine. Of course, the much awaited, I believe, counteroffensive has started. There's a dam that has blown up, and that is causing much heartburn around the region. Questions, there are so many questions to ask with regards what's happening, why, who did it, and is this the starting bell of the final round of this war? Sir, good evening and welcome to the show.
Good evening, and always a pleasure to be on the show. As you said, rightly said, lots happening, very interesting things. The Ukraine war perhaps is the turning point in the Ukraine war. We have the dam having blown up, and I mean, who would have thought that they would have done it? But as we go along, I'll try to bring out certain things. The very fact that this was being spoken about a couple of months. So we knew that something was going to come about. Then, of course, the counteroffensive. Well, they say that the counteroffensive has started. At the same time, they keep the Ukrainians have come up with a video which says, that silence is golden type of a video wherein they're showing soldiers with their fingers and doing the shush part of it. So, saying that something more is about to come. Is that part of information warfare or is it actually going to come? We'll talk about that as well. Then, of course, we had the ammonia pipeline leak, which is also an eco disaster, as they say, the second one after the dam. And somebody referred it as what? Eco-terrorism, eco-terrorism, or whatever you want to call it. But how is the counteroffensive proceeding if it has started? Is it really the counteroffensive? These are the issues we'd like to talk about today. But first, let's. I think we need to address the dam issue.
Who broke it?
Yeah.
Who broke the
So,
dam?
who broke the dam? I think it would be a nice caption. As it is, it's a nice caption. Who broke the dam? Well, nobody can say at the moment as to who broke the dam and how the dam was broken. Let's talk about that as well. Before even we go further, let's understand as to what this the entire uh, as they call it the Dnieper cascade. How are the dams structured and what is this dam all about? So I'd like to show you a couple of slides just to explain this so that everybody understands as to what the dam is about. This, of course, yeah, this is the one that we're going to talk about. And as we see, there are, six dams along the river Dnieper, and it's called the Dnieper Cascade. Now, historically, it is very interesting to understand. To see what is happening was that this particular portion of the river had a lot of rapids. That's what they say. That and it was kind of impossible for anybody to kind of sail down into the Black Sea. So just to cover up the rapids, it was thought that it would be a good, the damming was important, and of course the hydroelectric power part of it is also there. But traditionally, in the old, in the 1800s, it was decided that it's a good idea to dam this so that the rapids get covered, and one could kind of, make short hooks to cross this rapid, to cross the dams, and then go ahead. So the story goes like that. Now, as we see, this particular dam, what is it called? The
Novaya Kakova.
Kakova uh, dam. Now, this particular dam is the largest dam here. There's a road on top of it, which is 3.3 kilometers. It covers an area of about 18.18 square kilometers, and it's been called the kind of a, because 18 kilometers square kilometers is a hell of a lot of area. So this was considered as to be the most important dam, and as you see that the even the nuclear plant, that is the Zaporozhye
Zaporozhia.
nuclear power plant, that's also located nearby. And of course, sorry, I'll just show you that one. Let me. Yeah, this is the Kakhovaka Dam, and this is the where the Zaporozhye, on the north is the Zaporozhye nuclear power plant, and the Kakhovaka reservoir. I mean, that is how it is much to the north of where the dam is. So this is how the uh, structure of, I mean, the layout of the area is, and this is important to understand. Now, in relation to this, we see that towards onto the south, from the dam, if you look southwest, you find Kherson, and then of course is the Black Sea. And from Kakova Dam itself, you see the North Crimean Canal, which is coming down south, and which is the feeder line to the Crimean Peninsula. So
Hmm.
this is giving you a complete perspective as to why this dam and where this dam is. Now, interesting fact is that these dams have historically been attacked, historically been, you know, uh, what do you call, broken. Now, even in the World War II, we had, historically we see that these dams are also had been earlier broken by the Ukrainians, and flooding had taken place. Now, I'll just show you another one. Another fact of this is that you see that the Americans, it is the largest power station, and the Americans had been decorated for their work for the USSR. So it was in collaboration with the United States that this particular dam was made, and this is how it goes. So just wanted to show that. Now, uh, we'll just look at this. I also want to. I mean, why would anybody want to break a dam? Now let's go. Let's think from military point of view, and let us not think from the humanitarian part of it, or we are looking purely from a war angle. When you're fighting, you're on a battlefield. Interestingly, and just for everybody's knowledge, and all those in uniform would understand that flooding is always built into our battle plans. Okay, to restrict the movement, to impede the movement of tanks, flooding schemes are part of our battle plans. So just don't be surprised and be, this thing that flooding, they've flooded it. No, these are part of battle plans, and all over. Some of them are localized breaches that are made. Some canals will get breached, some dams will get breached, some local breaching will take place, but the whole aim is to channelize the mechanized forces to a particular area, or to protect a particular flank. So as far as, if I'm a military person, I'm not surprised.
Hmm.
I'm not surprised if such a thing was attempted. I'm not even saying which party attempted it at the moment. All right, I'm just saying I'm not surprised that this happened. All right. Now, who did it? Uh, well, what would the Russians gain by doing it, and what would the Ukrainians gain by doing it?
Cui bono. Okay.
All right. Uh, some say that it gives the Russian an advantage because the Ukrainians were going to launch a counterattack direct onto Crimea through this particular area, and it was the shortest route in, and that is why they wanted to blow it up so that one part of the area is covered. And they got so scared because, you know, there were one or two crossings which the Ukrainians were successful in doing over the river Dnieper. They did it silently over, over 2 3 nights, and this was a big thing as far as the Russians were a little surprised on it. So this did happen. Now, would that have prompted this particular bridge to be blown up, the dam to be blown up? I take it with a pinch of salt. Now, I want to take you back when, initially in the month of February or so, when I think, yeah, in Feb 2022, when the Russians had launched the attack, and they were heading towards Kiev. It is just for everybody's knowledge, and I'm sure some of you would already be aware that the Ukrainians flooded 3 rivers, caused flooding around Kiev. And there's this village or township called Demidev, which was totally like flooded and brought underwater. And this was done deliberately by the Ukrainians with a view to stop the Russians. And I'm just going to show you a little, from a U.S. military academy study, which the research somebody has done and written that paper. So I'm going to quote that, and let me just take it. This is what happened when the Russians attacked Kiev. Now, what I've highlighted here, the first paragraph is just talking about obstacles, and the second paragraph is talking about defending Kiev. Ukrainians deployed thousands of obstacles. Good. They blocked streets with thousands of concrete blocks, cars, steel hedgehogs, etc. But most in the last sentence of the second paragraph, which is highlighted, but most skillfully and ingeniously, they created obstacles by flooding major rivers. So as I was just telling you, flooding is a part of a defensive, oblique and offensive maneuver. And you read the third paragraph, it says, while Ukrainian special forces blew up bridges all around Kiev, Ukrainian civil engineers released water from key dams. In some places, they flooded entire areas, including the village of Demidev. In other places, they raised the water level high enough to saturate low-lying ground to make it impossible for vehicles to traverse. And now, what I'm just trying to tell you is that somebody was already played around with it. Somebody already used water as a weapon. Somebody who's, a side which has already used water as a defensive mechanism and has experienced it, is likely to use
Do
it
it again.
again in its favor,
Absolutely.
right? So I'm just taking you back a little because these slides are done them in a little hurry. This is that same paper. It brings out lessons. Tactical ingenuity, such as flooding, opens new possibilities in defending a major city, right? But the most important lesson in Kiev is that by using natural terrain, in this case a dam, undermatched forces can defend a sprawling city on the cheap. So I'm just trying to highlight something that the Ukrainians used it early in the war, in the month of February. And you have another, this is a New York Times, uh, you know, they flooded their own village and kept the Russians at bay.
Caught with the hand in the cookie jars, huh?
Yeah. So what I'm trying to tell you all is somebody who's used it earlier and found it effective is likely to have used it again. And incidentally, and as offline when I was talking to Achit, I did mention that about 3 odd months back, I had read, and I desperately was looking for that piece today, but unfortunately could not find it. There were plans and there were talk about flooding and blowing up these dams. Now, what is the aim if they have to do it in this particular area? And look at the timing part of it. There are also reports, and you would have read it and you heard about it, that the Ukrainians have actually tried firing that HIMARS onto the dam.
They've been doing that for a long time, sir.
Yes. So if they've been doing that, they've been weakening it. It is also very interesting that the dam, the Dnieper Dam, there's a dam, the second, the third dam on the cascade. They started releasing the water, and even now, extensive amount of water is being released. Even though this Kakhovov dam has been blown up, still water is being released from there.
So they're inducing further flooding.
Yes, they are inducing further flooding downstream, and that had been opened earlier. And apparently, if you keep reading in between and you read and read and read, you will find small, uh, you have to pick up threads. It They say that the Ukrainians, when they released that water, had already withdrawn their forces from that area, particular area, because
Ah,
localized flooding has also taken place there. All right. Now, what's the aim? Let's assume. I'm saying assume because today we do not have any concrete kind of inputs to suggest who did it, and we are kind of trying to evaluate and assess as to who would have done. Assuming that is the Ukrainians who did that, right? Now, why would they do it? And and the timing part of it. We've been
hmm.
hearing about a lot of things. The counteroffensive is about to come, a major, and when it comes, it's going to surprise everybody. It's going to shock everybody, uh, and definitely we are going to be. I mean, Ukrainians going to be successful. So as I see it, uh, when you launched a counteroffensive, the so-called counteroffensive, which is supposed to be on the fourth or the fifth day today, which has been launched, and which the Russians claim that they have been pushing back the Ukrainians, and the Ukrainians have made very little headway. I mean, you see the coincidence part of it, and when you look at the coincidence part of it, it's a part of a bigger plan. I mean, if I were to do it, and if I had to do it, and I had thought of doing it, it would be timed appropriately and properly. Now, why would I do it? Okay, well, this is something which I hurriedly put across. What you see, the shaded portion down in the south, north of Crimea, the shaded portion in white is where Kherson is, and this is representative uh, of the flooding. And the three arrows that you see going towards the east, and two arrows going towards the east and one going down near south. Uh, these are the general directions, and one going north, of course, from Kharkiv to Belgorod. So we know this. These are the areas generally they've been addressing, and I'm not going into the you know
Tactics of it.
tactical battle of it. I'm just trying to depict and give you a picture as to what exactly is happening. You have a movement towards Bakhmut, then you have movement south of Donetsk, and you have movement coming down towards Zaporozhye, and of course they have gone into Russia and Belgorod and all those areas. So these are the three major focus areas. Uh, Now, what are they aiming to do if the Ukrainians have flooded Kherson and the area that I have marked? This is with a view to protect their flank. If you launch an offensive, An offensive is a big offensive. It's not you plan
In pigs.
on a bigger scale. You're short of troops. You don't want to be surprised. So in my understanding, it was easier for the Russians to have launched an operation, crossed the river Dnieper, and Kherson with them. They would have gone across and come at the rear of the Ukrainian forces. The
Hmm.
Ukrainians don't want that to happen. And what have they done in turn? Protected themselves by flooding that area so that no offensive or a counter offensive can take place from the south to the north. And this is precisely, in my scheme of things, is the essence of why this one has been blown up and why the flooding has occurred. So they don't now the Ukrainians do not have to defend this area with so many troops because they are as it is short of manpower and short of equipment, as you say. So this particular flank has got protected, and now their entire attention is towards these four areas where I have marked these arrows. So this is how it looks, and to me this makes logical sense. Why would the Russians do it? Russians wouldn't have done it for a simple reason because they already made, their defensive
Defensive
line
line.
along this particular
Ah,
area, and they wouldn't have. Flooding would not have been a part of this scheme if it was on their defensive, layout. If it was, then trust me, they won't have constructed those kind of defenses which they have in this particular area. So, is it an advantage to the Russians? Yeah, in a way, it's an advantage to the Russians as well because no offensive or no arrow is being seen coming down from this particular side towards from Kherson towards the Crimean Peninsula. So in a way, it protects. So this is my take on this particular blowing up of the dam, and I to me it is very logical to have blown it up and protecting one's flank, and militarily, uh, well, they say that international rules do not permit it, or you do
yeah,
not
both.
destroy infrastructure, but in this particular case, I think no rules are being followed.
Yeah,
This is this is an all-out war, uh, which 40
I
countries,
yeah,
40 countries uh, are directly involved and 51 are indirectly involved, fighting against one particular country which has a little backing from a little moral support from China, no, but not material support. So uh, this is what it is in my scheme of things.
fantastic, sir. Thank you so much. Can I take this off?
Yeah.
Your permission? Now, this is a Kahani mein twist. As usual, sir, you brought out a very different perspective. Nobody's covered it, and I'm sure some of our Western experts will start talking about this in the next some time. So that's going to happen. I'm quite positive that there's some notes which are getting exchanged here, sir. So that's one thing which is there. Sir, my question is now this counter-offensive, whatever has happened militarily, sir. They came in with what, some 60 tanks and this and that. There are two, three things I notice of it. One, you have come in broad daylight against a country which has absolutely absolute control of the air in that area. Absolute control. Integrated air defense, they've got this, that. These buggers also have anything starting from these geranium to drones to tactical ballistic missiles targeting these regions. Zaporozhye was a well-known area where they've been talking about, yaar, yahan jana hai. So first of all, I don't know counter-offensive where you're announcing where you're headed to, and the fighting is still on. Belgorod, now that the Wagner is deployed there, so थोड़ा सा dicey लग रहा है वहां पर घुसना because these guys are good guerrilla fighters. How do you see this even if it was a probing attack, let's say, or a feint for that matter? But 3,000 men, you've lost some 30, 40 tanks, some 1,000 men. What do you make of it militarily, sir? Especially the daytime attack, I can't fathom. I mean, it's unbelievable.
Yeah, you rightly brought out, Adi, that there's no, there is absolutely no air. The F-16s are still,
In the hangars.
they're still in their hangars, still under, uh, the drawing board stage as far as deployment is concerned. So I don't know what kind of a counteroffensive Mr. Zelensky is talking about in the way he's walking about as if he's the biggest hero of the world.
Hmm.
Uh, you know, uh, this is not the way you fight, plain and simple. Now, just because they are being pushed to prove themselves, I mean, you know, half a league onwards onto the Valley of Death, wrote the 600, and
Huh.
that is what is going to happen, and that is what is happening. They're being actually driven down into the Valley of Death, these soldiers. But this is not the way you fight. You ought to have uh, you ought to have enough spunk in your, you know what, to tell the world, thank you very much. I am not here to get my boys killed. I am not fully ready to launch any sort of an offensive. I will not do it now. I will do it in my own time and place of my own choosing. Now you look at the other way around and look at the Russians. Let's look at the Russian mindset. Okay, what have they done? Uh, Initially, they suffered a defeat, whatnot, whatever happened. But at a certain stage, they took a call to go on to the defensive. We've captured certain amount of area, 15-20% of the area. Now we go on to the defensive, and they've gone and prepared an extensive defensive line. You want to include this dam also as a part of the defensive line? Let's, okay, just take it. Supposing they did it and it is a part of the defensive scheme,
Fair enough.
right? But it was a very conscious decision on the part of the Russians. Okay, wherever we are, we dig down. Now, this is the area that we are going to defend. And from here onwards, we will launch attacks. So they kind of made a firm base all along the eastern front of Ukraine, and from where, after having captured a certain amount of territory, they've built the defenses, they've dug down, they prepared to take on the Ukrainians, right? So that is, they dug down.
Hmm.
Conscious decision. Next conscious decision: blast the daylights of the Ukrainians.
Back
They
ending.
launched they launched a very concerted, planned air campaign, non-contact warfare campaign. They brought down, they all as many they are bringing down as many missiles that they can. They brought bringing down as many drones that they can. And what are they striking? They're striking communication centers. They're striking command and control centers. They're striking logistic bases. They're striking railway, stations.
Junctions
They,
and cross points. Yeah.
the airfields. That is how you launch a campaign. What if they do? They brought down their entire air defense. Today, how interesting. From where the defenses are, when the Ukrainians are launching whatever little attacks, the helicopters, the attack helicopters, are playing merry hell with these, with their, mechanized columns.
I've
Broad
seen
daylight,
rows
broad,
and rows
broad,
getting beaten up.
broad daylight, helicopters taking on. Where's the air defense? It doesn't exist. How did the Russians beat them at that? They let loose so many missiles. They let loose so many drones. that whatever counter, air defense that they had, or whatever air defense umbrella or air defense uh, dome that they had, they've let loose all their air defense munitions and exhausted them. And today, attack helicopters in broad daylight are taking on their tanks. I mean, Russians, hats off to them. They are going fully planned. They have not yet exhausted the forces. They are taking in whatever little, uh, renewed offensive that the Ukrainians have done. They're blasting them. They're letting them have it, right? On their defensive line, prepared, well prepared defensive line, covered by artillery fire, covered by, these attack hepters and the works. And in the depth areas, they're letting them have it with missiles and drones, and they're still taking on airfields and stuff. And of course, the air is letting loose those glide bombs. So that's how you fight. And let's now look at the Ukrainian side. If you, if there was, and we know it, that there is a shortage of, the
Manpower.
armored vehicles, that manpower. There is a shortage of tanks, and what would you want to do? What these guys have gone about doing is, in an effort to do probing attacks, as they're talking about, or reconnaissance and force, recce and force, on trying to see where they can get you know, a gap, and then through the gap they would have the main columns coming in. I don't see that happening, because how much of armored fighting capability, mechanized capability do they have? And
Hardly
if
some two 500 vehicles total, sir.
even without air defense, what are they going to do?
Yeah.
So this is a very sad state of affairs as far as the offensive is concerned. And if they think that, by going in half a kilometer they've made major gains, well, that's not what you call a counter-offensive worth talking about. So
In
if you
4 days,
ask
that
me, yeah, if you ask me, uh, I won't call it no counter-offensive. I would say these are suicide missions. People have been pulled, I mean, pushed to go commit suicide, and that's what is happening. And it's rather sad to see how the West has been able to kind of push or goad the Ukrainians
to do
to do
this.
something. Uh,
Mm.
lest NATO loses face, the United States loses face, because if this so-called counter-offensive is not successful, obviously these guys have no face to show, and this is precisely what is happening, and it's rather sad. And interestingly, the world started realizing that the Ukrainians are going nowhere, and in the end of it all, it is advantage Russia, right? So you have this news of saying that we will fight. Some nations will join in the fight, other than, not because they are part of NATO, but otherwise they will fight, and they'll
To
come into
save
and come
Ukraine.
to the, yeah, to save Ukraine. Now, if this is what is going to happen, uh, well, if 4 or 5 nations combine together and start getting in their troops into Russia, and if Russia then, is propelled, is pushed, what it amounts to, it amounts. I am taking part in this war, but I'm not taking part because NATO has told me, right?
I'm not NATO, but I'm.
I'm I'm anti-Russia. I'm fighting against Russia. But if Russia launches something against that country, say if it's Romania and Russia lets loose a missile at Bucharest, then Article 5 gets invoked. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, yeah. Russia will start shining its
No,
big
you're hearing.
missiles.
Yeah, if Russia responds by firing a missile at Bucharest, if Romania comes in or
Then it's
Moldova comes
Article
in,
5.
and then they'll say, no, no, the NATO country has been attacked, so it's Article 5.
फिर भी कोई नहीं
So,
आएगा sir. Nobody will
no, no,
come.
no, no, no. I'm just trying to tell you as
Uh,
to the escalation part of it.
yeah.
The escalation part of it. Suddenly, it will become the NATO will get involved. So these kind of, I think, very immature statements are being made, or the nations are immature as far as they got carried away by Zelensky's kind of, heroism. Well, hats off to his soldiers who are fighting for him, but I feel very sad that so many human lives have to be, laid to rest just because of somebody's stupidity and foolishness. Yeah. And there's no counteroffensive. At the moment, I see no counteroffensive. This is, I mean, six tanks. What are you talking about? Six tanks coming in. At least a
Sir,
regiment worth. At least a regiment worth of tanks. When you when you talk of counteroffensives, you talk of armored divisions,
yeah,
armored brigades, mechanized brigades.
entire corps going into battle.
Yeah, you talk of a major force going into battle. You talk of these are well planned operations, and in any case, if you have to cover the entire front like what they are doing right now, well, you must have that kind of forces also to do this. You can't be dissipating your whatever you have in these penny pockets all along and tell them go launch an attack without air, without RT support, because RT support also has to be distributed. Artillery also has to be distributed. They must be supported with artillery. They must be supported with engineers. They must be supported with air. Uh, it just mechanized columns with infantry alone cannot do anything. They have to be protected against air. They must have their air defense along with them. And if you distribute them all along, I mean, what are you going to do? And you will go, even if you gain half a kilometer, what have you done? Yeah.
Sir, my point is, I mean, there is another hyperbolic that comes out of this. One is, of course, now you've told us about the so-called offensive and stuff like that. The Russian movements are still inching forward. We discussed this last week. Wherever they stand, they've been broadening that thing, and they have created something called, and I'd like you to explain this to us, a fire control area of 25 kilometers in front of their lines. That is something a lot of these Russian bloggers have started talking about. Apart from that, the second point that I want to the issue is that we have a big problem in terms of the NATO being able to actually, uh, I won't call it narratively sustain this. And narratively is probably a word that I just created, but as 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 the for example, the CNN report today. In the evening, there's a report that comes out and says, "Oh, Ukraine has not been able to do this." The previous attacks that we've seen, and when this dam broke, the kind of narrative attack that we see coming across from the Ukrainian side, from the Western side, I mean, it's overwhelming. You can't scroll your Twitter feed without seeing that thing. We didn't see it this time. So what is it? What's up here? What happened here?
This information warfare can also has to be executed smartly. But today, what is happening is whatever kind of information warfare that is being fought, or it's the information or disinformation which is being brought about. Unfortunately, people must realize that I'll give you two statements from two countries. The US and UK both even till now, have not said, have not committed that, have not blamed Russia for this collapse of the dam. If you read, United States says it is not clear. UK has also said, made the same statement. They have not clearly stated that or blamed Russia for it. You know, so two countries, major countries, anti-Russia, have so far not made Russia culpable of this particular act. The rest of the world is talking. Zelensky is talking. Everybody's talking,
Mm-hmm.
right? But officially, these two countries have not stated. They're still examining. So that is one. Now, I think the whole thing today is leading to a point wherein the world started accepting Ukraine's defeat.
Mm. Okay.
I mean, this is a realization everybody, it's set into everybody. That today, if you think that Russia's, I mean, you would have seen statements made by the Secretary of State, United States, that
Yeah.
it's, they're not going to be thrown out. So everything is leading to coming to saying that it's not possible for the Ukrainians to throw out the Russians from their soil. But everybody's talking peace, peace plans and peace plans. But will Mr. Putin talk of peace at this stage? Either in his place, I won't.
Mhm.
Says, I've had enough of you guys. Now let me achieve my aims, and only then we'll talk about it.
Then we'll talk.
Then we'll
We'll
talk about
talk. We'll talk.
it. Yeah.
We'll talk.
So uh, this element of accepting and defeat and accepting the loss has already perhaps set in within NATO
Mm.
and individually within the United States and even UK to an extent, because they know that they, put in far too much of money and they're not getting the ROI.
Mm.
You see, there has to be an ROI. If you put in so much of money, you must get something back in return, and that's not happening. Nobody today. I mean, if you see the videos which are going around, you see the number of these recruitable male population which is trying to run away.
So one guy wanted to jump off a bridge, sir.
Yeah,
He rather
they don't
commit
want to.
suicide than go to the front.
They don't want to do it. They don't want to go to the front because they know it's you're not going to come back.
That means the Ukrainian population knows this is a scam.
This is a total scam, and they've been pushed into it. And did you? I'm sure you came
Wow.
across this. I'm sure you came across this narrative once again that Zelensky needs to go.
Mm-hmm.
Earlier, also, if you recollect, I had said Poland wants them to resign. Then again, of late, there is a renewed this thing. The Poles do not want the Ukrainians on the soil anymore.
They're saying
The
these guys
Pole,
are Ukrainianizing Poland.
yes, they are this, and the Ukrainians. What do? I mean, they have come in there. They need food. They need to exist, and that is how a lot of criminal activity is started, and they're blaming it all to the Ukrainians. And Polish people, by and large, are peaceful people. And again, the Polish army, because of all the inputs from the United States Army and the training, etc., has been emboldened, and they've pushed themselves. As far the common Polish person is concerned, civilian is concerned, he's not interested in the war.
There's a huge
Because
protest in Poland, so almost 1 million people came on the street.
so, so what is going to happen? You don't be surprised if Poland also walks into Ukraine, and we've discussed this, and grabs a part
Yeah,
of Western Ukraine. So
Ukraine.
the dynamics are going to be. realization is leading to a major change in uh, in the thought process. Many linkages are being broken. Many arrangements are going to fall apart, and countries like Hungary are not going to let loose. I mean, they're very straight and very clear. So, in my opinion, uh, it's a no go as far as Ukraine is concerned. In my opinion, Ukraine ought to realize this, uh, that they are being pushed much beyond their capabilities. And I don't know where I read this, that who's warning. Yeah, the the deputy president, Prime Minister Medvedev. He has said that the day is not too far when Mr. Zelensky will be eliminated by the West.
Actually said that. That's the beauty of it.
Yeah,
That guy's quite
yeah,
a wild mouth. Huh?
he said the Americans are not going to do it directly, but then that's what they plan in,
Yeah,
what do you call, that's what the CIA is a master at.
it's
So
called
they're
the
hinting at,
75 cent treatment. It's like a 75 bullet at the back of your head.
yeah.
That's what
So
they call it.
I mean, and he's made it very clear, and he's made no bones about it by saying that sooner or later this gentleman will be eliminated by the West. So, in my opinion, this counteroffensive no go, uh, no go in the sense ill planned, ill conceived, until unless something drastic is going to come, and I don't see nothing coming at the rear. Nothing seems to be there at the rear. F-16s, God knows when, right? Tanks. I don't see M1A1s there. I see leopards fine, but many leopards have already been taken on. So all this is happening. So it's quite sad. It's quite sad. And plus, Russia has got its own ISR in place, well
Yeah,
established. Intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance, everything in place, and they're targeting. They're taking on every tank, whether they're taking them on a drone or through the helicopters, attack helicopters. It's amazing.
and so secondly, I mean, just a tactical question. I saw a video, and there were these line of tanks on a road. The Russians hit the first one and the last one, and these guys just didn't move. They just stood there, and then for me, that was like, can you guys not just get into the woods or something? I mean, move out from there. But
Oh,
they was
that's shock
what was it?
action.
Evacuation or what? You need a tank or two for casualty. What about the rest?
Oh, this is what the shock action is. That is where the training comes in. You know, that's where your what do you call, a trained soldier and a trained crew would do something different. They would know how to act. That is where contingency planning. They would have rehearsed all these things. If something like this happens, what to do, how to take cover, how to break away,
Yeah.
all that. But in their case, these guys are all novices, trained in Poland in under good circumstances, not under battlefield conditions.
I mean,
So
for me, as a novice, I was like, yaar, hato yaar, wahan se hato, there are bloody drones circulating over your head. Get out of there. I could figure that out, as I've never seen a tank firing in my life. I mean, I could figure that out, but it was amazing. These guys just stood there. Last question, sir, before we get into the whole bunch load of questions that have come. This topic obviously arouses a lot of interest in people. Sir, what do you see happening next as far as Ukraine is concerned? Do you think they will keep at it in that pinprick, or they will try and open another front somewhere? Uh, because that one Zaporozhia, that one village, Okran or whatever it is, that seems to be becoming a wall for these guys. I mean, the Russians get away, they pull back, these guys occupy it, they pound it, reoccupy it, they come back. This has been happening for now 4 days.
yeah, you see, well prepared defenses on the Russian side, well planned defensive operations, hitting out in the depth, having these fire corridors all along in front. or fire, whatever you called it, your term that you used, 25
Fire
kilometers.
control. They're calling
Fire,
it
yeah,
fire
fire,
control area.
fire controlled area or whatever it is. That is because each when they would have done it, how we do it is we leave no area. Every bit of the area is covered. Each dead zone, each area is covered by, and it is cross. I mean, if somebody is going to fire from here, somebody is going to fire from here. So the
Hmm.
area gets covered. There's overlapping. So it's a well planned kind of a defensive operation which is going on there. There are mines, there would be ditches, there would be wires, there would be concrete blocks. So all that is in place. In fact, I had these pictures with me in which I could show how the defensive layout is. Uh, as I know that in the central sector, they're looking at a place called Tokmok, and that is where the
Hmm.
entire offensive is headed, right? Uh, and it is very interesting to see as to what is the defensive layout around Tokmok also. I have these pictures anyway. Next time maybe. So these are proper defenses. They've got ring buns wherever they have deployed. They've got ring buns. I mean all around circular buns. We call them ring buns, but they're surrounded by trenches. So they've gone about in a systematic manner. They've got layered, defensive systems. It doesn't stop right at the front. It was one layer, then the second and the third tier of defenses. So it's all well planned out. So these guys are going. If they continue with the same level, same force level as they have applied now, trust me, they're going nowhere. Second, even if they make headway in one particular area, there is a breach, and they want to pump in maximum troops through that breach or through that corridor, whatever foothold that they get, or a bridgehead as they call it. If they establish a bridgehead in that particular area, trust me, with the lack of air defense,
Be
no
gone.
air defense, no air support, these guys will be had because now they will be concentrated, and they'll all get picked up by
Yeah.
the air, via satellite imageries, via electronic and whatever int you call it, and they're going to be had and they're going to be mauled very badly. And the Russians are waiting for this to come. The moment there's a concentration of force, they will let loose, God knows, all the missiles on them, and that will be the end of the Ukrainian armed forces. So they have the Ukrainians are in for major trouble, whichever way they want to launch an offensive. If they are headed north, if they are headed north, Belgrade and in the Kursk area and what I was talking about a couple of weeks
Two
back.
weeks ago.
Yeah. So if they are headed up north, again due to lack of air defense and lack of air, they'll get mauled.
The
So
Russians used Me 8s
li-
and Me 8s, Me 17s and took them out from there.
all these attack vectors are going to let them
Yeah.
have it. So in my opinion, either way, the Ukrainians are in deep shit, and the Russians are going to advance. The Ukrainians will make minor gains in places, attacks, counterattacks, a foothold there and a foothold there. But
That's part of the
overall,
game.
we know that the Russians are gaining ground,
Hmm.
and they are expanding westwards, and slowly they will. And if God forbid, if this whatever counteroffensive launched, the Russians will maul them nice and proper because they do not have no air defense. These Patriots, the Iris T, all that has gone. Recently, also they took out another radar. Iris T was taken on. If you read about it,
Yeah,
so
yeah. Somebody has joked that thing gave out so much smoke that it's a great smoke screen in the battlefield. So
yeah, so and Kiev is getting bombarded by day. Of course, people talk about Trinistria being, occupied by the Ukrainians. Uh, well, perhaps maybe as a last resort they find that nothing else but this, but that is not going to compel the Russians to, trade it for Crimea or anything of that sort. So, what I would want to see happening is the launch of this, the capturing of the Odessa and the areas along the coastal line, and that is where uh, I would be interested in. Then that would excite me much more than the current situation as it is. Yeah,
Let's get into some questions, sir. Guys, before I
yeah.
do, like the video, subscribe. Obviously, this is something I have not heard, and the kind of perspective that sir has actually done the research on the history, sir. Thanks for that. I mean, it's a different perspective, and I really got to know a lot more with regards to this. I'm going to ask you your last comment on if things do go bad, the Russian nuclear option, short of the nuclear weapon, would be to blow off all the bridges on the Dnieper and trap these guys here.
You see that in any case, if you recollect, I did talk about it. I'm not talking nuclear. I'm talking about,
No, not nuclear. That's a nuclear option, sir.
yeah, yeah.
Without the
So,
nuclear weapon.
yeah, non-nuclear option, the perfect option. Get everybody this side of the river,
And
blow up all the bridges, and say thank you very much. Lay down your arms. And now, what is going to happen if this happens? Just imagine if 80% of your forces are east of the river line, wanting to go in for a counter-offensive. What is left westwards, west of or north of the river line, is are your logistic elements, and that's about it. It ultimately would be uh, amount to a total surrender of the Ukrainian army, uh, because they would not know where to go, and that is what I fear is going to be the uh, end of this particular war.
ladies and gentlemen, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, spread the word. This is going to be an interesting episode to watch out for and how it actually ages going forward. And let me assure you, all the past four episodes that sir has talked about and the predictions that I've given have aged superbly well. And I must congratulate the analytical skill right there. If you do want to donate to Dev Talks, you can contribute right with the QR code above, or become a member, or send us a super sticker or a super chat. Exactly what Naveen has done. Thank you so much, Naveen. General sir, have there been similar incidents of blowing up dams and gas pipelines in prior wars? Dams, yes. Gas pipelines, I'm not sure, sir. Up to you. What does this mean for future conflicts, especially with regard to China, which believes in total warfare?
Yeah, blowing up of dams, gas pipelines. Well, all is fair in love and war, and yes, dams maybe perhaps not of this scale, but definitely minor dams. If you want me to give you an example, I'll give you the example of the same very in Ukraine itself. All right, now let me.
Well, if I may, sir,
Yeah, yeah,
during the Second World War, the Dam Buster Squadron was a specialist squadron that was made
yes.
with B-25 bombers, and
No, no,
they,
yeah, yeah. I just want to give the example of this particular dam on Dnieper River itself.
sir,
In, I mean, I may have noted down elsewhere, but it was a very interesting thing. The dam was blown up by the Ukrainians, by the Ukrainians, that part of USSR at that particular time, against the Germans. All right, to hold on to stem the German advance. It could not stop the Germans to the degree, But when the Russians launched the counterattack, the Germans blew it up again. And I'm talking, these very dams. So blowing up of dams is not new. I mean, you do a little bit of this thing on the Second World War in this particular area, and you will find that these dams were blown up and blown up twice. Once against the Germans and one by the Germans against the Russians. So it is part of it. Gas pipelines, yes. If you even in the wars in the Middle East, gas pipelines are always very, very well guarded, and there are sabotage activities which continue. And trust me, you're talking about what it means with respect to China. Why are we worried about Chinese dams being damming of Brahmaputra River? Don't we talk about it? We are what if they dam the rivers, they which is that the number of dams that they've made on River Sangpo, and that is the River Brahmaputra, and they're damming it. Why are we why are we kind of not wanting those dams to be built as proper for the very same reason that if the water is let loose, it will flood our own plains.
Now that's why we are making reservoirs around the banks of the Brahmaputra.
So, uh, this is a major cause of worry. Now, against China, I'm not going to talk much of it because China is something different. But yes, it's a major cause of concern. Damming of Brahmaputra by the Chinese uh, is a major concern for us.
A
Yeah.
compliment to take the show forward, sir. This is one weekly show I actively look forward to. Thank you for such detailed coverage.
Thank you, Ashutosh.
Right. Our current thoughts on Tomac axis is screening our screening and probing assaults. This you've already answered, sir. What is your assessment regarding the three lines of defense prepared, which seem to be similar to the Soviets? Can Russians stop the incoming big arrow?
Yeah, why not? I mean, you know, we talked about this tiered defenses. Fine. That is for the assaulting formations, assaulting troops to stop them. But remember, wherever you have a defensive line, a defender who's well prepared always has it covered by fire. On its own, there is no defensive line which cannot be scaled, which cannot be broken. But when you're advancing and you come across a defensive line, your momentum gets broken. When your momentum gets broken and you get into a fight, that's the time the artillery and the air comes in and takes the enemy on, right? So every bit of defensive area or defensive line must be covered with by fire. Can Russians stop the incoming big arrow? Why not? And I'll tell you the reason why. Again, repeating it. They're going to be coming without air, right? There's no what do you call protection from the air. There is no air defense in place. The air defense has been taken on very badly, and that was anticipated. It was anticipated by the end of month of May that the entire air defense ammunition would get exhausted, and that's precisely what has happened. And plus, the mega air defense gadgetry that they had imported from the United States from Germany, or which they have got, that is the Patriot system and the Iris T, they've also gone down. So the Russians have still got the air in place. They've still got a huge lot of missiles. They got a huge lot of ammunition, and they got a whole lot of army waiting behind. So obviously they can stop the big arrow.
Hmm.
Yes. How big is the big arrow is the question mark also.
Big one, sir. Maya asks, with This dam destroyed both Russia and Ukraine effective. This must have led to flooding in Crimea.
Not really. It's not. They both are affected, undoubted. Russia is also affected. So is Ukraine affected. The Russian side is affected. Their defenses have got affected, and many the area which was under Russian control has also got affected. Flooding of Crimea, no. This hasn't happened. On the contrary, they are talking about that. Firstly, the water has not gone that far. It won't go that far. And as far as the canal is concerned, what is feared is that water won't be available uh,
Post.
post this. After 3 4 days, the water level is going to go down, and once the water level goes down, there won't be adequate water, drinking water available, fresh water available for Crimean Peninsula. But as far as Crimea is concerned, the Russians in 2014, the Ukrainians has
Ukrainians cut
stopped the
off the
water
supply. Hmm.
supply of water to Crimea by blocking this, and it was only after the Russians have captured it have they opened it again.
Yeah,
So from 2014 to 2022-23, uh, this was without any water. So the Russians are quite prepared. So it won't really affect.
indeed, sir. Sorry. From a military perspective, how do you define a successful counteroffensive?
Good question. A successful counteroffensive is an offensive in which you force the enemy to retreat and give up captured areas, or or you force him to trade off certain areas. Now, a counteroffensive should be launched in an area where the enemy is weak, where you can go in deep. It should have a value. It should be a value objective by threatening which the enemy is forced to retreat. What is
Hmm.
the value objective here? Value objective here is just Crimea. What is the other value objective? Uh, well, head towards Moscow. So I don't see no value objective in this particular belt which has been captured. So until unless this counteroffensive should be such that it troubles Russia so much that it says, okay, fine, brother,
Let's talk.
let's talk. I may just put it this way. I hope I've answered your question.
About a lot of rumors of the Kinzhal damaging Patriot batteries and the West media now going silent on the Patriot. If it's true, isn't the entire West, not just Ukraine, vulnerable to Russian missiles going forward?
Absolutely. Now that's precisely what has happened. Perhaps this is the first time that the Patriot batteries have been tested against the hypersonic missiles, and they've proven themselves to be a failure as far as their capability is concerned.
Hmm.
You see, this is what today everybody is. These are the lessons that we are drawing out of the war. We think we are very safe. I've got a Patriot missile system, and I'm protected. But the fact of the matter is, it's proven that you're not protected any longer. So the next step would be to build up something, to create something which can stop these hypersonic missiles. And I'm sure the thought process is already on how
Already
to
there,
upgrade the
absolutely.
systems. And you see, it's a cycle. You build the Patriot missile system, so you had to make something which was which was able to counter this. Now they will upgrade the air defense, and the missile will also get upgraded. So it's a
Hmm.
cat and mouse game where you try and outsmart your enemy by improving upon your technology and by your equipment. So that is how it is. So yes, I'm sure we as Indian, now that I'm not in uniform, it's been couple of years I'm out of it, but I'm sure we are also thinking on similar lines. Yeah.
That's very interesting. Very interesting. How do I put it? It's a scenario, situation, place to be in at that in this
You know,
particular time.
you know, one day we will, towards the end of the war, which should not be very far, actually, in my opinion, another year or 2 years, I'm saying, because 2 years they'll keep forcing these guys to commit suicide one by one, and
I'm laughing, but it's terrible.
that's how it is. Unfortunately, they're going to run out of manpower, and they'll have equipment, they'll not have manpower, and
Yeah.
then they'll import manpower, and they'll bring in other countries, and those guys will continue to die and things like that. Anyway, so it's a spiral which will continue. But uh, the most important thing I find here, the nature of warfare is changing. You see, all this while you had Iraq and you had Afghanistan. Uh, Afghanistan was more of counter-terrorism, small team operations, you know, fighting in built-up areas. Whereas Ukraine has become it's an hybrid war. Why I say hybrid, it's not full-fledged because one side is weak, is still struggling, and one side is a full, full-fledged armed forces. I mean, well-trained armed forces, cohesive armed forces against a non-cohesive conglomeration of various forces. So this is I won't say a traditional war or a conventional, true conventional war in the right spirit. The NATO countries are experimenting, whereas the Russians are not. The Russians are finding that the weak spots in the NATO forces. So this is a very interesting phase in the history of warfare, where many new things have come about.
I mean, that's absolutely a yeah. That's a very interesting thing, sir. Isn't it? Isn't the surprise element of the offensives over due to the quantum leap in ISR capabilities? Russia also launched very advanced satellite last week with less than 1 meter precision. Same case with NATO.
Yeah, ISR capability. Where is the surprise element? I don't see no surprise as of today, which is coming about. I wish there was this, and I hope, sincerely hope, that there is a surprise. If you're talking about a counter offensive, if they can surprise me after another week, 10 days, maybe another month, I'll be very happy, and maybe I'll change my tone. But as of now, I can't. There is no doubt that the ISR capabilities are uh, far far superior than you guys can imagine. I may just put it this way. I've dealt with it, so I know it. I've handled it, so I know it. But I'm not going to talk about it. But
Obviously.
less than 1 meter precision is nothing new. 1 meter precision, even we have. We're talking zero point 0.5 meters. So nothing very. Let's talk not 1 meter. Let's talk zero point 0.5. So capabilities of on the American side, they're exceptional. So are they on the Chinese side, and so are they on the Russian side, and so are ours. Let's just put it this way. ISR is something which constant improvement.
The interesting thing about ISR is that, sir, everybody knows what it is, but nobody knows what it is.
Hey, the thing is, all of you have heard about it. You've
Yeah,
not experienced it.
nobody knows what it is. We know,
Yeah,
by satellite tracking, this, that, drones.
but but let me tell you, somebody is listening on to this right now.
I'm sure.
Yeah, but that, and he's doing it because of his ISR capability, not because
I,
of.
to me, sir, and I'm not trying to flatter you. The we mentioned Belgorod, and the 3 days later, these buggers were in Belgorod. I said, "Oh bloody hell, what have we done?"
Yeah, no, no. People
You know,
listen, and people don't have to hack into our computers and hack to our this thing. These are they're monitoring it, or they're most welcome to do it because we're not letting out any secrets. We're just analyzing. as for.
Analyzing the situation. Yeah.
Yeah.
Last two, sir. This is an interesting one, and I'd like to take your opinion on this. I'm sorry for the. It's Major General, Mr. Highlander
It's
boss.
okay.
Would you like? But I really like the question, sir. What would your strategy be if you were the operation commander at Zaporozhye? Please lay down the operational details for us.
I was the operational commander. Okay. On the approach here, frankly, you need to study the. Let me just tell
Tactic.
you.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, no, no. It's a very good question. But first thing, remember, we all as commanders would like to understand the terrain first, right? And each terrain is very peculiar and nuances of the terrain. So I'll generally not go by this particular area, and I'll just want to give you as to what I would be looking at if I were at Zaporozhye as a defender. I hope
Yeah.
you want
Russian
me to
native.
speak as a Russian defender. How would I do it? You know, I'm not talking ISR. I've got my satellites. I've got my electronic intelligence. I've got my signal intelligence. They're all working for me. I have an operations command center which giving me feed. I have physically I have physically deployed people much ahead. I've put my reconnaissance elements about 20-30 kilometers ahead of me, who would actually be sitting in twos, threes, and giving me accurate information uh, on the radio or on or by digital means. I would get live coverage from the front that would be visible as to what is happening 20-30 kilometers ahead of me. Uh, by day or by night, I would have worked out. I would have worked out. Okay, if he's going to come in here in this particular area, how would I react? You know, there is readjustment of defenses. There's reinforcement of defenses, reorganization of defenses. All that takes place. Uh, Main thing always is to identify as to where the enemy is going to come and hit you. That's the main thing.
Hmm.
आएगा कहाँ? Where is he going to contact me? How do I make out where is he going to contact me? I see tanks all over. I see tanks all over coming approaching me. But these guys don't have that many tanks as well, unfortunately. But I'm looking at the number of tanks. But they are coming broad front, right? They're all coming broad front. What is behind? I'm looking at the logistics chain. The tail is what worries me. It will give me an indicator where they're headed. Because the tail has to, you know, when you're going on a broad front and you contract, you will come on to where you want to hit. That can happen fast. But where is my tail? Where is the tail? Because the logistic elements, the
Hmm.
the ammunition train, the engineers, everything, they cannot change direction so fast. They have to come on a road. They are heavy. They're carrying a lot of heavy stuff, so they have to move on a road. So they give me a direction. So I'm more worried to know where is the contact point. So I've got my SR also onto it. I've got my everything focused as to know as to where they're going to come. Now, accordingly, I will readjust my defenses. वहाँ में कोई indication नहीं है. What are the battle indicators? So I'll read the battle. This is called reading the battle, right? We look for battle indicators. You read it as to how it's going to play. If he comes here, how's he going to play? If he comes there, how is he going to play it out? Which are the roads which he can take? Which are the axes he's going to maintain? So it's a very complex thing. It's not so easy to impart adequate knowledge to you all. But let me just tell you, it's very scientific. It ain't. It's not something that you.
Take it easy and lightly, sir.
No, it's not a. It's not a digital what you call
When you
game.
when you started talking like this, sir, to me the whole Ukrainian effort just seemed like, यार तू इधर आ, तू उधर जाके खड़ा हो जा, तू उधर जाके खड़ा हो, चलो गोली मारो.
That's the thing.
मेरे को ये दिख रहा है सर. I mean, when you explain this right now, I यार ये it's just like a collection of ragtag things put
That's
together.
precisely. That's
Jawi.
precisely. That's precisely what is the impression that we guys are getting. And maybe it is because of lack of information. I'm not saying, because I really do not know how many. We're not gone down to the tactical level. We're not gone down to the formations. Uh, if I were sitting there on ground, I would know exactly who's my enemy right there in front of me, which unit it is.
Yeah, and I
By
won't
now,
attack in the day.
no, that of course, that's an that's out of the question. But what I'm saying is that I would know who exactly is there, what is his capability, what is the weaponry he's carried, is it a trained force, what is he good at, where has he previously operated, who's the commander. I would know the commander's name, I would know his profile, I would know whether he's a risk taker or he's just a, uh, his profile would be with me. This guy takes risks. This guy doesn't take risks. He, he's married. He's got so many children. His wife stays there. I would know everything about him. Where did he school and how much of services he got and where all has he served. So it's not it's not child's play. It's not
Absolutely.
child's
I just got a message, sir, and it says it's a case of military versus, and this is from Venki Saab, who's a very regular viewer of ours. Military versus militia, organized versus ad hocism.
correct. Absolutely, he's put it very, very bluntly. I mean, I think this is it describes it all. Thank you very much.
And a compliment once again for you, sir. Major General Saab is brilliant. His tactical war analysis and insight are accurate about Russia-Ukraine conflict.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. This is this is what we did all these years.
No, sir, you might have done this all these years, but I'm saying this on air, so I'm not trying to humble you or anything like that. I have seen
Right.
analysis, and I've read analysis from people, no saying who, but my God, you wonder what are you doing? I mean, this if you write stuff like that, and I've seen them in Indian newspapers, you wonder where is he taking his information from? I mean, it's probably those four Ukrainians sitting with a keyboard who are typing something. He's writing that. It's terrible.
No, I think what we I don't know who's educating the Ukrainian army and how they're coordinating their battles. It requires a lot of coordination,
Yeah.
hell of a lot of coordination. And I'm sure there are people there that there are senior generals who adequate adequate experience of the NATO forces who guiding them. I mean, it cannot happen like that. But definitely, the Russians are very well coordinated and very well planned, and they're doing a great job at it.
So thank you, sir. And before I do, Vaman, thanks so much for becoming a member. Thank you, sir, so very much for this analysis. It's this one was absolutely amazing because I really did not think about. I kept my mind stuck to the tactical situation right now. What's happening? What's happening? What's happening? Didn't really bother to go back into the history and understand what is the game. I completely forgot about the beginning of the battle and the flooding of the cities and stuff like that. That just struck my mind. So I was quite flabbergasted when when you actually told me. I said, "Yeah, that's interesting," and it's a nice connection where you can actually relate to. Sir,
Yeah, I think what has happened was that people tend to forget the past and to
yeah.
stop linking, and everybody focused on, oh, they've blown up a dam, they flooded the areas. Oh, they forget as to what was done to their own people, right?
So thank you
Anyway,
for humbling me down and bringing me to that reality, sir. Because at the end of it, I normally do change into history, but this time I think I got a little overcaught with the flow of the water, if I may. And I
anyway,
also got
nonetheless, I think it's been nice and
fan-
interesting discussing this issue.
fantastic show, sir. Thank you so much, as always. See you next
Yeah.
week. Jai
Right.
Hind.
See you guys. All the best and have a great day. Bye.
Thank you, sir. Bye bye.